shoulders, a heart full of blues and in the dirt, down in the dirt.
Hello friends. Earlier this year, I had a monumental breakthrough. I was able to quit a bad habit that I had been doing every day for my entire life. So to be able to figure out a way to break this habit once and for all was a huge personal accomplishment. Now, I'm not an expert in this field, and I realize that everybody's habits are going to be different, and everybody's methods that they need to use to ultimately break that habit are going to be different as well. However, this was a revelation for me, and I found it incredibly valuable, and I wanted to share with you the 4-step method that I created to break my habit once and for all. And I think that even if your habit is different, the tools that I've used here, you can use as well. Add to your toolkit to finally break your habit. So just a little backstory. Before this year, every day, multiple times a day, even while I was sleeping, I was doing this habit. I mean, I didn't know life without it. It was just with me every single day by my side, and I was just so attached to this habit. I mean, it literally was with me every day. That's right, folks. I was a thumbsucker. And now I'm not. Before I developed this method, I had tried so many things. I tried that nasty nail polish. I had a ring that I would wear on my thumb. I'd had friends and roommates and loved ones who would try to help me stop while they saw me. I had prize incentives. My dentist offered to put a spike in the roof of my mouth. I didn't go for that. I talked to therapists about it. I mean, I was sucking my thumb my entire life. Even before I was born, I was sucking my thumb in the womb. Now talk about a long-standing habit. So trust me when I say I can understand if you're going through something that has taken you months, years, a lifetime to get over. Because this was a lifelong habit for me. But once I developed the method that I used, I was able to quit in 5 days. And I haven't had a single relapse since. So I want to break down that method with you step by step, so maybe it can help you too. Now, step 1 of this method is laying down the foundation, which includes buying yourself a small pocket-sized journal like this. You want to be able to have something that you can have with you in your pocket at all times. I recommend a physical journal because that'll bring awareness to the habit you're trying to break. If you use your phone to write down notes, like I do every day for a lot of other things, you're going to associate your phone with other things, and it's going to confuse your brain. Whereas this brings awareness to the habit you're trying to quit. The first step is you're going to write down the exact thing that you want to quit in as clear a way as possible. Just write it in the front page of that journal. The next part of step 1 may be one of the most important to the entire journey, and that's creating a strong reason why you want to quit. You have to have a strong reason why. In fact, for me, it didn't really work until I had a strong enough reason why. You have to have a reason to quit that is stronger than the benefits you get out of keeping the habit. The reason why we perpetuate these habits is there's something we get out of it. There's something we enjoy about it. There's some kernel of it that we like. So you have to have a reason why that is stronger than that. And when you identify your reason why, think of an image. Think of a feeling. Make it real in your mind, because that reason why is going to be helping you every step of the way through this journey. Now for me, the reason why I finally quit sucking my thumb was that it started to affect my teeth. My dentist actually showed me an x-ray showing that how my teeth were finally moving. And also I could start to hear a little bit of a lisp in my voice. And I could hear my voice changing as a result of the teeth moving. Very, very scary. So suddenly I had a very strong reason why to quit. So once you've got your journal and you've written down exactly what you want to quit, and you've written down your important reason why, and included some images and some feelings associated to that reason why, it's time to move to step 2. Now, step 2 is setting up your defense, which includes identifying vulnerable moments. When are you most vulnerable to do that bad habit? When are you most tempted by it? I identified that the most vulnerable moments were when I was just completely unconscious. When I was watching TV, or when I was working on the computer, or driving my car, or right when I was about to go to sleep. I was one of the most vulnerable times. And so I would write all those down. And the thing I recommend for you is that the first week after you get your journal, just identify those vulnerable moments when you're doing the habit. Don't necessarily try to stop it just yet, but just notice and be aware of when you're most vulnerable to do that habit. And during that first week, write down when you did the habit, and was it during a vulnerable time, what maybe triggered you to do that habit, and if it was coupled with something. A lot of habits are coupled with other things. Some people only smoke cigarettes when they drink, or some people only drink when they're with certain people. So write down if there's anything that is coupled along with that habit. After you've written down which times you're most vulnerable, start writing down some alternative actions or ways that you can prevent those vulnerable moments. Once you've written those down, you're on to step 3. Now, step 3 is all about cultivating presence. Being present, being aware, being in the moment is going to significantly help you destroy that habit. There's a moment in between the impulse to have the habit and the action taken to do the habit. So in that moment, that's when we need to be hyper present so we can actually choose to do the habit or not. If we don't have the presence to make the choice, then we're just unconsciously slipping into the habit. Like me with my thumb, I wasn't choosing to suck my thumb, it just kind of slipped right in there unconsciously. But as soon as I was able to cultivate and develop the presence, I was able to make the choice to stop myself before I started. Now, the best time to cultivate presence is right before those vulnerable moments that you just identified. So anytime you're about to enter into one of those vulnerable moments, that's when you need to be hyper focused and present on your goal. Remember that reason why you want to quit. Remember the feeling. Remember that image of the reason why you want to quit. So for example, for me, one of my most vulnerable moments was right before I was driving. So I would drive home from work and I would say to myself, okay, I'm about to drive. This is a vulnerable moment. Let's start doing some of those alternative actions, or let's try to remove some of that temptation. So for me, when I'm driving my right hand, that temptation to slip that left hand right in, I would suck my left thumb, would just be easy. It would just pop right in. So I would go, okay, be focused on left hand on the driver wheel, or left hand under the thigh, whatever I could do to eliminate that temptation. The next part of this is to be present and aware once you have done that habit. So when you catch yourself doing the habit, it's not a time to beat yourself up. Because here's the thing, if you beat yourself up, man, I just did the habit, and you get mad at yourself for doing that, well, guess what? You're not going to want to catch yourself again because it's going to feel bad. So instead, turn the perspective into celebrating the fact that you caught yourself. If you catch yourself doing the habit, that's a celebration. You were aware. You developed enough presence to be able to stop yourself, or at least catch yourself doing that habit. For me, it wasn't just enough to catch myself. I had to stop, and I had to do what I call anchoring the moment. So I would anchor the moment. I would stop again, and if I caught myself, I wouldn't just catch myself and then just go back to what I was doing, because if I did that, I would most likely unconsciously slip right into that habit moments later. So what I would do is I would catch myself and I would celebrate the fact that I caught myself, and then I would anchor that moment, stop, take a moment, be hyper present, remember my goal, and I would remember again that feeling of my teeth being pushed. I would remember those x-rays, I remember the sound of my voice, all of those strong reasons why, all those strong feelings and this imagery attached to that strong reason why. And I would remember that moment and then do a different action and go on with my day. All right, step 4, the fourth and final step. Now, this was the key to finally breaking my habit and being able to do it so quickly within 5 days. I call it keeping track and celebrating the wins. This is a phrase that I really identify with, is what gets measured gets managed. And if you don't measure it, chances are it's not going to get managed. So another big part of the journal is every day that you do your habit, you keep score, keep track. Write down the date that you're going to start doing this, preferably the week after you started identifying your vulnerable moments, start that week of notating and keeping track of when you do that habit. So you write down the date, and then you write down a tally mark for every time you do the habit that you want to break. This does a couple things. One, it keeps track and keeps score so that the next day you can strive to do less than you did the day before. Another thing is because you have the journal with you at all times and you're making a moment, you're anchoring that moment to take that score, keep that track, put that tally mark down. That solidifies that moment, helps you bring presence, bring awareness to that habit. Now again, don't beat yourself up about the score, okay? You want to celebrate the fact that you're noticing that you're doing the habit. That's a celebration right there. And then if you do less than you did the day before, that's a huge celebration as well. Now, when you're keeping track, if you stop yourself before you do the habit, don't write down a tally mark. There was times where I got my thumb all the way up to my lips, and then I'd stop myself, and I wouldn't count it. Be like, nope, I caught myself before it happened. Celebrate that win of catching myself, of having the presence of mind to stop myself in the habit and not just unconsciously slipping into it. Now, if that thumb got in there and stayed there for a couple seconds, and then I woke up and was like, oh, crap, there it was, doing it again. Celebrate that win that I caught myself. But write down that tally, keep that track. So this is the phenomenal thing that started happening. Once I identified exactly what I wanted to quit, I identified my strong reason why, and I had images and feelings associated with it. And then I identified my vulnerable moments, so I was able to be aware before I was going into those vulnerable moments. I identified ways to remove the temptation from those vulnerable moments or alternative actions. And then once I started keeping track, putting all those together, I was able to quit in 5 days. First day, 9 times. And then I looked at it the next day and I wrote down the date and I said, okay, 9. I'm going to do less than that today. That's my goal. And guess what? I did 5. Half as much almost, right? And then the next day, only 3 times. I was stoked. I was on a roll. I was on a streak. And that momentum kept me going to be hyper-focused and aware throughout the day. And then that next day, only 1 time. 1 time, I unconsciously sucked my thumb. Then the next day, 0. After that, 0. Next day, 0. Next day, 0. I never sucked my thumb again. I was able to completely eliminate the temptation in my mind. I don't know what it was exactly, but it felt like by the 3rd day, every time I would have that impulse, it was like an electric pulse that was going out and then getting discharged. Like I'd be driving, my hand would be on the steering wheel, I'd have the impulse to suck my thumb, and it was noticeable, but my hand would stay right on the wheel. It'd stay right there, and it felt like that impulse just got zapped. The neural pathways were being redesigned so that I wouldn't fall into that habit. And it was insane. It was insane to be able to feel the impulse come through and to see my thumb just stay right where it was and not move. Amazing. Now, I kept track for it for about 2 weeks afterwards just to make sure that I wouldn't relapse. I kept hyper-focused, kept my journal with me, and I got close, but I never did it again. And then after 2 weeks, I just had no more temptation. Even in my most vulnerable moments, my brain got rewired. I eliminated the habit completely. And to me, that's amazing, To be able to quit this lifelong habit just within a few days was unfathomable to me. I mean, it was miraculous. It was amazing. So that is something that I felt was incredibly valuable, and I wanted to share that with you. Now, I'm fortunate that I haven't had any relapse, and I don't think I ever will. I think it's done for good. But I understand that different habits have different attachments. We have different benefits from the habit that we're overcoming. So if you do relapse, I do encourage you to just go through the process again. If you identify new vulnerable moments, write it down in your journal. If you want to go ahead and do another focused week where you're keeping track and measuring it, I bet you that second time around, you're going to be even more present. And it's going to be even easier to make a streak. It's going to be even easier to beat the score from the day before. it's had a huge impact on my life. And one of the best parts about it is now I feel empowered to be able to overcome any negative habit. And that is invaluable. So if you're out there and you're struggling to break a habit, I encourage you to please give this method a try. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much, you all, for allowing me to share this process with you and to share this epic win in my life. Best of luck on your journey, and be well, my friends.